Oliver Reeves typed another line of code. Into his terminal, the soft clicking of keys the only sound in his small office. The data analysis wing stayed quiet during night cycle, which suited him perfectly. Most of the station crew preferred working during the bright artificial daylight hours, but Oliver had always been nocturnal by nature. Here, tucked away in a corner office that nobody else wanted, he could process ecological surveys without interruption. The first alarm made him pause mid-keystroke. Red lights flooded the corridor outside, his door spinning in urgent circles. The station-wide alert system crackled to life, and a mechanical voice announced something that made Oliver's blood go cold. Containment breach in Xenobiology Lab 7. Subject 47 Terran has escaped. Primary holding. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones. Security teams respond immediately. Oliver leaned back in his chair, staring at his screen. Subject 47 Terran, he knew that designation. Everyone who worked on the station had heard whispers about the Earth creatures kept in the high-security labs. The alien researchers loved collecting specimens from newly discovered worlds, and Earth's biodiversity fascinated them to an almost obsessive degree. His communicator buzzed. Dr. Havoc's irritated voice cut through the static. All teams maintain calm. The escaped specimen is a small mammalian predator, barely 15 kg. Standard capture protocols should suffice. Net launchers and containment fields only. I want it back undamaged. Oliver grabbed his communicator. Dr. Havoc, which Earth creature exactly? The designation doesn't tell us. Mellivora capensis. Intern Reeves, now. Clear the channel for security personnel. The line went dead. Oliver felt his stomach drop. Mellivora capensis, honey badger. He pulled up the Earth fauna database on his terminal, fingers moving fast. The file loaded with a detailed entry that made him understand exactly why the alarms were blaring. Honey badgers weren't just predators. They were nightmare fuel wrapped in a deceptively small package, fearless to the point of insanity, equipped with claws that could tear through wood, teeth designed for crushing, and skin so loose and tough that it could twist completely around inside to bite. Attackers holding it. The security channel erupted with confused voices. It went through the energy barrier like it wasn't even there. How is something that small moving so fast? It just destroyed the reinforced panel in Corridor 12B that's supposed to withstand plasma cutters. Oliver could hear the panic building. The alien security teams had no context for Earth creatures. They saw the size and assumed proportional threat levels. They had no idea that Earth had spent billions of years creating predators that packed maximum violence into efficient packages. His door was still open. Oliver stood up, moving toward it to trigger the lock, when he heard something in the corridor. Not the heavy boots of security teams or the clicking of insectoid feet. Something else. Something that moved with absolute confidence despite its size. The honey badger appeared in his doorway. It was smaller than Oliver had imagined. Maybe 2 ft long with silver-gray fur on its back and black underneath. Blood streaked its coat from a dozen small injuries. Its eyes darkened. Intelligent, scanned the office with methodical precision. This was not a panicked animal. This was a creature that had made deliberate choices and executed a complex escape plan. Oliver froze. Every piece of advice about wildlife encounters flooded his mind at once. Don't run, don't make eye contact, don't show fear. The problem was that most of that advice applied to animals that had natural predators, natural reasons for caution. Honey badgers had evolved past such concerns. The creature stepped into the office, claws clicking on the metal floor. It circled the small space once, twice, sniffing at the corners and the small storage containers. Oliver remained perfectly still by his desk, barely breathing. The honey badger completed its inspection and looked directly at him. They stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Then the honey badger did something Oliver never expected. It walked calmly to his desk, bunched its muscles, and leaped up onto the surface. It scattered a stack of data reports, knocked over his empty coffee mug, and settled itself directly in the center of the workspace. The creature circled one more time, found an acceptable position, and lay down. Its eyes never left Oliver. The security channel continued its chaos. In the background, teams were searching the ventilation systems, now following thermal signatures that led nowhere. Dr. Havoc's voice had lost its dismissive tone, replaced by genuine concern. They had no idea where the honey badger had gone. Oliver's legs felt weak. He slowly sank back into his chair, putting himself at eye level with the creature on his desk. The honey badger watched him with an expression he couldn't quite read, not aggressive, not friendly either, just watching, evaluating, deciding. The creature's breathing had slowed. Oliver could see the exhaustion settling over it now that it had stopped moving. The injuries looked worse up close. Burns from energy barriers, cuts from forcing through metal panels, bruises forming under the fur. It had fought through every obstacle the station security could throw at it, and it had chosen to stop here in his office. On his desk, Oliver's hand hovered over his communicator. One call would bring security teams flooding into this corridor. They would capture the honey badger, drag it back to the lab, probably sedate it for weeks to prevent another escape. The right thing to do, the professional thing to do, was to report its location immediately. The honey badger shifted slightly, wincing as it settled its injured body into a more comfortable position. Its eyes were starting to close, exhaustion winning over vigilance. Oliver looked at the creature, really looked at it, not as a dangerous specimen or an escaped lab subject, just as an animal that had endured something terrible and was trying to find safety. His hand moved away from the communicator. "Okay," he whispered, more to himself than the honey badger. "Okay, you can stay for now." The honey badger's eyes closed completely. Within seconds, its breathing shifted into the rhythm of sleep. It had found what it was looking for: a quiet place, a safe place, a human who understood on some instinctive level that even the most dangerous creature in the galaxy sometimes just needed to rest. 3 hours had passed since the honey badger claimed Oliver's desk as territory. The creature slept in the exact center of his workspace, surrounded by scattered reports and overturned equipment it had displaced during its initial occupation. Oliver sat in his chair, hands frozen above his keyboard, afraid that even the gentlest typing might wake the sleeping predator. The security channel had gone from panic to frustrated to downright confused. Teams kept finding traces of the honey badger's path, but never the animal itself. Claw marks here, blood droplets there. Destroyed ventilation cover in section 9F. The trail went cold somewhere near the data analysis wing, but security assumed the creature had doubled back through the air ducts. They never thought to check the quiet offices where interns worked through the night. Oliver's terminal displayed a live feed from the security command center. Dr. Havoc paced between monitoring stations, his reptilian features twisted in anger. The doctor kept gesturing at screens, his tail whipping in agitation as he demanded updates that security couldn't provide. A simple earth mammal, Dr. Havoc hissed through the comm system, barely larger than a Federation maintenance drone. How is this difficult? Oliver muted the channel before he said something that would get him fired. Alien researchers had made this mistake before. They judged Earth creatures by size alone, never bothering to understand the context. Earth was a death world by galactic standards. Everything that evolved there had to be tough, adaptable, and willing to fight for survival. Size meant nothing when you came from a planet that tried to kill you in 1,000 different ways. The honey badger stirred, and Oliver's breath caught. The creature opened one eye, looked directly at him, then closed it again and returned to sleep. Message was clear enough. It knew he was there. It was choosing to trust that he wouldn't attack while it rested. Or maybe it just didn't care. Honey badgers had a reputation for absolute fearlessness. Maybe it figured that if Oliver tried anything, it would simply wake up and handle the problem. Oliver slowly reached for his water bottle, moving with glacial care. The honey badger's ear twitched, but it didn't wake. He took a small sip and set the bottle down again. His throat was dry from breathing shallowly for hours, and his back ached from holding the same careful posture. The terminal chimed softly within. Incoming message. His supervisor wanted to know why he hadn't checked in. Oliver typed a response with 2 fingers, keeping the movements minimal. Feeling sick, working from desk, but may need to leave early. The lie came easily. He couldn't explain the real situation. Nobody would believe that the station's most wanted escaped specimen was currently napping on his data reports. Movement on his desk made him freeze. Again, the honey badger was waking up. Properly this time, stretching in a way that reminded Oliver of a cat. Every muscle flexed and relaxed in sequence. The creature's claws extended fully, leaving small scratches in the metal desk surface, then retracted. It yawned, displaying teeth that seemed disproportionately large for its head. Then it looked at Oliver, really looked at him, those dark eyes held an intelligence that made him deeply uncomfortable. This was not a simple animal operating on instinct. The honey badger was thinking, processing, making decisions based on observation and experience. Oliver had read the lab reports. He shouldn't have had access to them, but station security was laughably easy to bypass if you knew anything about computers. Subject 47 Terran had been kept in isolation for 6 months, constant testing, stress response evaluations, aggression threshold measurements. They had poked and prodded and pushed the creature to its limits over and over again. No wonder it had escaped. Oliver would have done the same thing. The honey badger stood up on his desk, shook itself thoroughly, then began a careful inspection of its injuries. It licked at the burns on its front legs, the rough tongue working methodically over each wound. The cuts from forcing through metal panels got similar treatment. Oliver watched the creature tend to itself with surprising gentleness. His communicator buzzed again. Security was expanding the search to previously cleared areas. They would be working through the data analysis wing within the next few hours. The honey badger finished its grooming and turned its attention to Oliver's office. It jumped down from the desk with surprising grace and began exploring. Every corner received thorough investigation. The storage containers, the emergency supply locker, the recycling chute. The creature moved with purpose, mapping the space in its mind. Oliver noticed something interesting. The honey badger kept returning to his desk between investigations, as if establishing it as a central point, a home base. The creature was claiming territory, setting up a defensive position with clear sight lines to the door. It found the emergency food supplies in the bottom drawer. Oliver had stashed protein bars there weeks ago and forgotten about them. The honey badger's claws made quick work of the drawer's simple latch. It pulled out a bar, examined it with its nose, then looked at Oliver. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the honey badger did something that changed everything. It picked up the protein bar in its mouth, walked across the office floor, and dropped it at Oliver's feet. The creature sat back on its haunches and waited. Oliver stared at the offering. His hands were shaking slightly as he reached down and picked up the bar. The honey badger watched him intently. He slowly unwrapped it, broke it in half, and held one piece out toward the creature. The honey badger approached cautiously. It sniffed the food, checked Oliver's face for signs of aggression, then gently took the piece from his hand. The teeth never came close to his fingers. It was being deliberately careful. They ate together in silence. Oliver chewed his half of the protein bar while the honey badger demolished its portion with efficient bites. When it finished, the creature licked its paws clean and then did something else unexpected. It walked back to the desk, climbed up, and settled into the same spot as before. But this time it positioned itself differently. Instead of facing the door, it oriented toward Oliver. Its body relaxed into what might have been a comfortable position. The dark eyes stayed open, watching him, but the tension had gone out of its muscles. Oliver understood what had just happened. The honey badger had made a decision. It had tested him, offered him food to gauge his response, and apparently decided he was acceptable. Not a threat, maybe even something like an ally. "I don't know what to do with you," Oliver said quietly, his voice startled. Them both, the honey badger's ears perked up, tracking the sound. "They're going to find you eventually. And when they do, they'll drag you back to that lab." The creature tilted its head slightly, as if considering his words. Obviously, it couldn't understand human language, but maybe it understood tone. Maybe it heard the concern. Oliver pulled up the Earth fauna database again and read through the honey badger entry more carefully. Highly intelligent, problem-solving abilities comparable to primates, strong memory, especially for locations and threats, capable of learning through observation. He looked at the creature on his desk. It looked back at him. "You chose my office specifically," Didn't you? Oliver said. You needed somewhere quiet, somewhere the security teams wouldn't think to check right away, somewhere with a person who might actually understand. The honey badger yawned again and closed its eyes. Within minutes it was asleep. Once more, but this time Oliver noticed it slept with one ear still pointed toward him, aware, alert even in rest. Oliver turned back to his terminal and started researching station regulations. There had to be something, some loophole, some protocol, some way to keep this creature from being dragged back into a nightmare. He had 24 hours, maybe less. The security teams were thorough. They would find the honey badger eventually, unless Oliver found a solution first. Morning cycle arrived with gradual brightening of the station's artificial lighting system. Oliver had not slept. He sat at his desk, with the honey badger curled up on the opposite corner, both of them occupying the small workspace in an arrangement that felt increasingly natural despite its absurdity. His supervisor's messages had become more insistent. Oliver sent back vague responses about stomach problems and requested to work remotely for the day. The approval came through after 20 minutes, probably because nobody wanted a sick intern contaminating the office. The honey badger woke when the lights reached full brightness. It stretched again, that same feline motion that seemed wrong on something so stocky and muscular. Then it looked at Oliver expectantly. I don't have breakfast, Oliver said, keeping his voice low, unless you want stale coffee. The creature's nose wrinkled. Apparently, that was a universal response to bad coffee. Oliver checked his emergency supplies again and found a sealed pouch of dried meat meant for long-duration space missions. He had no idea if honey badgers could eat processed space food, but the creature seemed interested when he opened the package. He poured some into a shallow container from his desk drawer. The honey badger approached the food, cautiously sniffed it thoroughly, then began eating. Oliver watched the methodical way it consumed each piece, checking between bites to make sure he wasn't moving too quickly or reaching for anything threatening. Smart, cautious despite its reputation for fearlessness. He used the feeding time to fill another container with water from his personal supply. The honey badger finished the meat and moved to the water without hesitation. This time, it drank deeply, and Oliver realized the creature must have been desperately thirsty after its violent escape. You've been through hell, haven't you? Oliver said softly. The honey badger paused in its drinking to look at him. 6 months in that lab, they didn't understand what they had, probably treated you like a simple animal instead of what you actually are. The creature returned to drinking, but its body language had shifted slightly. Less defensive, more open. Oliver pulled up the lab records on his terminal, using his limited security clearance to access what he could. The reports made his anger build with each paragraph. Stress tests, aggression trials, isolation protocols. They had systematically terrorized this animal. The name of research. Dr. Havoc's notes were particularly infuriating. The doctor described the honey badger as unexpectedly resistant to standard behavioral conditioning and displaying abnormal hostility toward research personnel. No consideration that maybe the hostility was completely normal when you kept shocking a creature with energy. Prods to measure its pain tolerance. The honey badger finished drinking and jumped back onto the desk. This time it didn't settle into sleep. Instead, it sat up and looked around the office with renewed interest. Its gaze landed on a small potted plant that Oliver kept near the window display, showing the station's exterior view. The creature approached the plant, carefully sniffed the leaves, then looked back at Oliver as if asking permission. "It's not poisonous to you, I think," Oliver said. "Terran species, so probably safe." The honey badger gently pushed the pot, with one paw, watching it slide a few inches across the desk. Not aggressive, just curious, playing, maybe testing cause and effect. Oliver's communicator buzzed with an urgent alert. Security teams were beginning their sweep of the data analysis wing. They would reach his corridor within the hour. The honey badger's ears swiveled toward the communicator, picking up the subtle change in Oliver's breathing. The creature could sense stress. It moved closer to him on the desk, positioning itself between Oliver and the door. Protective stance, defensive formation. "It's okay," Oliver said, though he wasn't sure who he was reassuring. "I'm trying to figure something out. There has to be a way to keep you safe." He pulled up station regulations again, searching through hundreds of pages of bureaucratic documentation. Most of it was standard safety protocols and crew management procedures, nothing useful for his current situation. Then he found something in a subsection about crew mental health accommodations. Personnel were permitted to keep small animals for emotional support purposes, provided the creatures posed no threat to station operations and received proper documentation from medical staff. Oliver read the regulation 3 times. It was designed for fish tanks and small herbivores from low-gravity worlds. Nobody had ever tried to apply it to an Earth predator, but the language was broad enough that it might work. The problem was getting medical approval and documentation, and probably a dozen other requirements that would take weeks to process through proper channels. The honey badger nudged his hand with its nose. Oliver looked down at the creature. It had moved even closer, near enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from its body. Those dark eyes watched him with unnerving intensity. "You trust me," Oliver realized aloud. "You probably shouldn't. I'm just an intern. I don't have any real authority here, but you're acting like I can actually protect you." The honey badger made a soft sound, halfway between a grunt and a chirp. Oliver had never heard a honey badger vocalize before. The Earth database mentioned they were usually silent hunters. This was communication, deliberate, intentional. His door chimed. Someone was requesting entry. The honey badger's entire demeanor changed instantly. It flattened itself against the desk, muscles coiled, teeth bared, every injury and exhaustion forgotten. This was the creature that had torn through security barriers and evaded trained response teams. "Wait," Oliver said urgently. "Just wait, let me check who it is." He accessed the door camera. A young security officer stood outside, bird-like features marking them as avian species. Their weapon was holstered, but their feathers were ruffled in clear agitation. Oliver recognized them. Petrus. They had worked together briefly on a data corruption issue last month. Decent person, not trigger-happy like some of the security team. "Oliver," Petrus's voice came through the door speaker. "I know you're in there. Your terminal's been active all night. I need to ask you something." The honey badger growled low in its throat. Oliver put his hand up in a calming gesture, then felt ridiculous for treating a honey badger like a trained dog. But the creature actually stopped growling and watched him. "What do you need?" Oliver called through the door. "We're searching for the escaped specimen. Found traces of it near this section. Have you seen anything unusual?" Oliver looked at the honey badger. The honey badger looked back. They had reached a decision point. "Petrus, I need you to stay calm," Oliver said, "and I need you to not immediately call for backup. Can you do that?" Silence from outside. "Then that depends on what's about to happen. I'm going to open the door. You're going to see something that will probably scare you, but you need to understand that nobody is in immediate danger." More silence. Oliver could imagine Petrus weighing options, hand probably moving toward their weapon. "Okay," Petrus said finally. "I'm trusting you, Oliver. Don't make me regret it." Oliver triggered the door release. It slid open with a quiet hiss. Petrus stepped inside and froze. Their feathers went completely flat against their body, the avian equivalent of shock. The honey badger had positioned itself directly between Oliver and the newcomer, every muscle tense and ready. "That's Subject 47, Terran," Petrus whispered. Their hand had moved to their weapon but hadn't drawn it yet. Oliver stepped away from it slowly. "No," Oliver said. The word came out more confidently than he felt. "Listen to me. Look at its position. It's not threatening me. It's protecting me from you." Petrus's eyes darted between Oliver and the honey badger. "It's a dangerous predator," Dr. Havoc said. "Dr. Havoc is an idiot who tortured this creature for 6 months, Oliver interrupted. "It didn't escape to hunt anyone. It escaped to find safety, and it found this office, my desk." The honey badger shifted slightly, tracking Petrus's hand near the weapon. The message was clear: draw that weapon, and there would be consequences. "It's been here the whole time," Petrus asked. "You've been hiding it." "It chose to be here," Oliver corrected. "I just didn't report it because I knew what would happen. They'd drag it back to that lab and probably never let it out again." Petrus slowly moved their hand away from their weapon and raised both hands in a peaceful gesture. The honey badger relaxed fractionally, but stayed alert. "You're risking your career," Petrus said. "Maybe criminal charges for interfering with station security." "I know." "Why?" Oliver looked down at the honey badger. The creature glanced up at him, then returned its focus to Petrus, still protective, still trusting that Oliver would handle this situation. "Because it's the right thing to do," Oliver said simply. Petrus stood very still in the doorway, while the honey badger evaluated them with predatory focus. The silence stretched until Oliver worried one of them might do something reckless. "I need you to make a choice," Oliver said to Petrus. "You can report this and end everything. Right now, security will flood this corridor, probably hurt the badger, the process of capture, and send it back to Dr. Havoc's lab. Or you can give me 24 hours to find another solution." Petrus's feathers rippled in what Oliver had learned was their species' version of nervous laughter. "You want me to lie to my commanding officer about the location of a dangerous escaped specimen?" "Yes." "That's insane." "Probably," Oliver admitted. "But look At it really look. Petrus focused on the honey badger. The creature had relaxed its aggressive posture slightly but maintained its protective position. Its injuries were clearly visible in the office lighting, the burns and cuts, marking its body like a map of everything it had endured to reach freedom. It's hurt, Petrus observed quietly. It fought through 3 security barriers and half the stations. Containment systems, Oliver said. Every one of those injuries came from trying to escape, and when it finally got free, do you know what it did? It found the quietest, most isolated office on the station and went asleep. That's not the behavior of a mindless killing machine. That's trauma. That's exhaustion. The honey badger made that soft chirping sound again, as if agreeing with Oliver's assessment. Petrus's eyes widened. Did it just respond to you? It's intelligent, Oliver said, more than the lab report suggested. It understands tone, context, probably more than we realize, and it remembers every terrible thing they did to it in that lab. It remembers. Petrus took a slow step backward toward the door. The honey badger tracked the movement but didn't react aggressively. I could lose my position for this. Security takes containment breaches seriously. I know what I'm asking, Oliver said. But I also know you're a decent person. You helped me fix that data corruption issue, even though it wasn't your responsibility. You actually listen when people talk, instead of just following protocols blindly. Flattery won't work on me. It's not flattery, it's facts. Petrus looked at the honey badger again, then at Oliver. Their feathers settled into a pattern Oliver didn't recognize. Decision-making, maybe. Internal conflict. 24 hours, Petrus said finally. But if you can't find a legitimate solution by then, I'm reporting this. I won't be responsible for someone getting hurt if that thing decides to go hunting. Fair enough. Oliver felt tension drain from his shoulders. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You still need to solve this. Petrus paused at the door. And Oliver, that creature might seem calm now, but remember what it is. Earth. Predators don't become friendly. They tolerate. There's a difference. The door slid shut behind Petrus, leaving Oliver alone with the honey badger once more. The creature immediately relaxed, its defensive posture melting away. It walked across the desk and sat down near Oliver's hand. They're not wrong, Oliver told the honey badger. You're tolerating me. I get that, but maybe tolerance is enough. He turned back to his terminal and pulled up the emotional support animal regulation again. The requirements were extensive: medical evaluation, behavioral assessment, habitat specifications, proof that the animal posed no threat to crew or station operations. The last requirement made him laugh bitterly. The honey badger had already proven it could tear through the station security systems whenever it wanted. How was he supposed to document that it posed no threat? His supervisor sent another message, asking about his status. Oliver replied that he was still feeling unwell but working through necessary tasks. The lie was getting easier with repetition, which probably said something unflattering about his character. The honey badger had moved to the small window display showing the station's exterior. It sat on the ledge looking out at the stars and the planet below. The creature's reflection in the glass looked small and tired. Oliver pulled up the Earth database. Entry on honey badger behavior. They were solitary animals in the wild, territorial but not inherently, aggressive unless threatened or defending resources. They showed remarkable intelligence in problem-solving tasks and could remember complex routes and locations for extended periods. Social bonds were rare but not impossible. Young honey badgers stayed with their mothers for over a year, learning necessary survival skills. Adults occasionally formed temporary partnerships with other species for mutual benefit. Maybe that was what was happening here. Not friendship in any human sense, but a practical arrangement. The honey badger needed safety. Oliver could provide that, or at least try. In exchange, the creature tolerated his presence and didn't tear his office apart. The terminal chimed with an incoming priority message. Oliver's heart sank when he saw the sender, Commander Price, the station's administrator. Message from the commander was never good news for low-level personnel. Intern Reeves, report to my office immediately. This is not a request. The honey badger's ears swiveled toward the terminal, picking up on Oliver's sudden stress. It jumped down from the window and moved to the desk, positioning itself in that now familiar protective stance. I have to go, Oliver said. Commander wants to see me. That probably means Petrie's reported this after all. Or someone else figured it out. The honey badger tilted its head, watching him with those unsettling dark eyes. I can't take you with me. You need to stay here, stay quiet, don't destroy anything or hurt anyone. Oliver felt absurd giving instructions to a honey badger, please. He stood up slowly and moved toward the door. The honey badger followed, matching his pace. When Oliver reached for the door controls, the creature positioned itself between him and the exit. I have to go, Oliver repeated. If I don't show up, the commander will send security to find me. That puts you at risk. The honey badger didn't move. It sat down directly in front of the door, blocking his path. The message was clear. They face threats together or not at all. Oliver's communicator buzzed again. Commander Price, demanding an immediate response. Fine, Oliver said, making a decision. That was probably incredibly stupid, but you stay close to me and you don't attack anyone unless I'm actually in danger, understand? The honey badger stood up and moved to his side, whether it actually understood or was just coincidentally compliant. Oliver couldn't tell. He triggered the door release and stepped into the corridor. The honey badger stayed exactly at his heel, moving with surprising stealth for something with claws that clicked on metal floors. They made it 3 corridors before running into a maintenance worker who nearly dropped their tools in shock. Is that official business? Oliver said with more confidence than he felt. Commander's orders, please don't interfere. The maintenance worker pressed themselves against the wall and let them pass. Oliver could hear them activating their communicator as soon as they were out of sight. Word would spread fast. The commander's office was located in the administrative section, requiring them to cross through 2 populated common areas. Oliver walked with purpose, the honey badger matching his stride perfectly. Crew members stopped and stared. Some backed away quickly, others reached for communicators. Nobody tried to stop them. Maybe the sight of a human calmly walking within Earth predator was too bizarre to process. Maybe they assumed it was somehow authorized, or maybe they just didn't want to get involved. Commander Price's office door was open. When they arrived, the commander stood behind their desk, all four arms crossed, in a gesture of profound displeasure. Their insectoid features made expressions difficult to read, but the body language was universal. "Intern Reeves," Commander Price said, voice clacking with the mechanical precision of their species. "Would you care to explain why Subject 47 Terran is currently sitting in my doorway?" Oliver looked down. The honey badger had taken up a defensive position at the threshold, blocking the entrance. It stared at Commander Price with calm intensity. "It's a long story," Oliver said. "I have time," the commander replied. "And judging by the dozen security alerts I've received in the past 2 minutes, you're going to need all the time I can give you." Commander Price gestured to a chair across from their desk. Oliver sat down carefully, very aware that the honey badger had not relaxed its defensive position. The creature remained at the door, eyes fixed on the commander with unwavering focus. "I received your emotional support. Animal application approximately 10 minutes ago," Commander Price said, manipulating a display with 2 of their 4 hands while the other 2 remained clasped behind their back. The timing, combined with the station-wide alert about Subject 47 Terran, suggested a connection. Imagine my surprise when security footage confirmed my suspicions. Oliver's mouth went dry. "You've been watching. I review all unusual crew movements during crisis situations," the commander said. "You walking through 3 populated sections with a supposedly dangerous predator qualified as unusual. The question is whether I should consider it brave or catastrophically stupid." The honey badger made a low rumbling sound, not quite a growl, but definitely a warning. Commander Price's antennae twitched in what might have been amusement. "Your companion seems protective of you," the commander observed. "It chose my office after escaping," Oliver explained. "I didn't capture it or coerce it. It just showed up injured and exhausted and decided my desk was safe enough to sleep on." "Why didn't you report this immediately?" Oliver met the commander's multifaceted gaze. "Because I read the lab reports. 6 months of isolation and stress testing. Dr. Havoc treated this creature like a simple animal instead of the intelligent being it actually is. I knew if I reported it, the same thing would happen again. So you violated containment protocols and harbored an escaped specimen." "Yes." Commander Price was silent for a long moment. Their hands moved across the display, pulling up files that Oliver couldn't see from his angle. The honey badger remained motionless at the door, but its ears swiveled to track every sound in the corridor outside. "Tell me about this application," the commander said finally. "Emotional support animal status for a mellivore. Capensis. I assume you understand how unprecedented this is. The regulations don't specify excluded species," Oliver said, pulling out the argument he had prepared during his sleepless night. "Only that the animal must not pose a threat to station operations and must serve a legitimate therapeutic purpose. And you believe a honey badger meets these criteria?" "It hasn't attacked anyone since escaping. It's been in my office for Over 12 hours, and the only thing it's damaged is my desk surface. The creature is capable of incredible violence but chooses not to use it unless threatened. Commander Price pulled up a video file. The footage showed the honey badger's escape route through the station. Oliver watched the creature tear through barriers with brutal efficiency, but he also noticed something the security teams had missed. Every time station personnel appeared, the honey badger avoided confrontation when possible. It only fought when cornered or directly attacked. Interesting, the commander murmured. It demonstrated significant restraint, given the circumstances. That because it wasn't trying to hunt. Oliver said it was trying to survive. The commander's office door chimed. All four of the commander's hands moved to defensive positions before the visitor was even announced. The honey badger's reaction was more dramatic. It flattened itself into an attack posture, lips pulled back to show every tooth. Dr. Havoc's voice came through the door. Speaker. Commander Priest, I demand immediate access. I've been informed that my escaped specimen is currently in your office. Commander Priest looked at Oliver, then at the honey badger. This should be enlightening. Come in, Doctor. The door slid open. Dr. Havoc stepped inside, and the honey badger erupted into motion, not attacking but creating an unmistakable barrier between the doctor and Oliver. The creature's entire body vibrated with barely contained aggression, a sound like distant thunder rolling from its throat. Dr. Havoc froze, his reptilian features paled to a sickly gray. Commander, that creature needs to be sedated immediately. It's clearly hostile. Hostile to you specifically, Commander. Priest corrected. It's been remarkably calm until you arrived. Why do you think that is, Doctor? It's a simple predator responding to. It remembers you, Oliver interrupted. Every test, every stress trial, every time you hurt it to measure its pain tolerance, it remembers all of it. Dr. Havoc's tail lashed in agitation. My research followed all approved protocols. That specimen was acquired legally for scientific study. Your protocols involved torturing an intelligent creature for 6 months. Oliver said, standing up. The honey badger shifted to maintain its position between him and Dr. Havoc. You didn't study it, you brutalized it. And now you're upset that it fought back. How dare you? Enough, Commander Priest's voice cut through the argument with mechanical precision. Dr. Havoc, I've reviewed your research logs, the behavioral observations, the stress testing protocols, the isolation periods. Tell me, what exactly did you learn from 6 months of testing? Dr. Havoc's confidence wavered. We established baseline aggression thresholds, pain tolerance levels, and you established that honey badgers don't like being hurt repeatedly. Commander Priest said flatly. A conclusion that any competent researcher could have reached through observation rather than torture. Work produced no useful data and violated ethical guidelines regarding treatment of intelligent specimens. It's an animal, Dr. Havoc protested. Earth fauna don't qualify for. The honey badger took one deliberate step toward Dr. Havoc, just one step. But the message was clear. The doctor backed toward the door, hands raised defensively. Out, Commander Priest ordered. We'll discuss your research protocols later. Privately. Dr. Havoc fled. The honey badger watched him go, then slowly relaxed its Aggressive posture, it returned to Oliver's side and sat down, the defensive behavior melting away as quickly as it had appeared. Commander Priest studied them both with unreadable insectoid features. That creature demonstrates remarkable behavioral control. It could have attacked Dr. Havoc but chose intimidation instead. It's intelligent, Oliver said, more than the lab reports suggested. It understands consequences. Attacking Dr. Havoc would have resulted in immediate termination, so it made a different choice. Or you've anthropomorphized a predator and gotten lucky so far, Commander Priest countered. How do I know this creature won't decide your office is no longer safe and go looking for a new territory, potentially through occupied sections of the station? Oliver looked down at the honey badger. The creature looked back, dark eyes steady and calm. They had been together for over 12 hours now. No attacks, no destruction beyond some scattered papers and minor desk damage, just an exhausted animal seeking safety and a human trying to provide it. You can't know for certain, Oliver admitted, but I can tell you what I've observed. This creature is capable of incredible violence. It proved that during its escape, but when given the choice between fighting and finding safety, it chose safety. When given the choice between attacking me and trusting me, it chose trust. Those aren't random decision, that's intelligence and emotional reasoning. Commander Priest was quiet for a long time. Their hands moved across the display again, pulling up files and regulations. The honey badger watched the commander with wary attention, but no aggression. The emotional support animal regulations were never designed for predatory species, Commander Priest said finally. Approving this sets a precedent that could be problematic. Oliver's heart sank. He had known this was a long shot, but hearing they rejection still hurt. However, the commander continued, precedents exist to be challenged when circumstances warrant. Dr. Havoc's research methods were clearly inadequate and possibly criminal. The specimen demonstrated both intelligence and restraint, and frankly, intern Reeves, you've shown more understanding of Earth fauna in 12 hours than our xenobiology department managed in 6 months. Oliver held his breath. I'm approving your application on a provisional basis, Commander Priest said. 90-day trial period. The creature remains with you under strict supervision. Any sign of aggression toward station personnel results in immediate termination of the arrangement. You become personally responsible for its care and behavior. Understood? Yes, Oliver managed. Absolutely. Thank you, Commander. Don't thank me yet. You're taking on significant responsibility. Earth predators are not pets, intern Reeves. Remember that. The honey badger made that soft chirping sound again. Commander Priest's antennae twitched. Did it just respond to this conversation? I think so, Oliver said. It seems to understand more than we realize. Then I suggest you teach it proper station etiquette, Commander Priest said, starting with not growling at senior officers. Dismissed. Oliver stood up and moved toward the door. The honey badger followed, staying close to his side. As they left the commander's office, Oliver could feel dozens of eyes tracking their movement through the administrative section. Word had definitely spread. By the time they reached his office, half the station probably knew that the escaped Earth predator was now officially living with the human intern. The honey badger jumped back onto the desk and curled up in its claimed spot. Oliver sat down in his chair and let out a long breath. They had bought 90 days. 90 days to prove this could work. The creature closed its eyes and settled into sleep, completely trusting that Oliver would keep watch while it rested. Oliver looked at the honey badger and whispered, "Don't make me regret this." 1 month had passed since Commander Priest approved the provisional arrangement. Oliver sat at his desk reviewing ecological data while the honey badger slept on the opposite corner, exactly where it had been sleeping since that first chaotic night. The desk had become their shared territory through unspoken negotiation. Oliver kept the left side clear for his work. Terminal, data tablets, and coffee mug. The honey badger owned the right side, where it had arranged a small collection of objects that only made sense to the creature itself. A smooth stone from the station's geology lab, a piece of soft fabric from the recycling center, 3 protein bar wrappers that it refused to let Oliver throw away. Station life had adapted around them in unexpected ways. Crew members no longer panicked when they saw the honey badger. Instead, they gave the office a respectful distance and learned to knock before entering. The creature had established a routine that everyone had memorized: sleep during standard work hours, explore the office during night cycle, return to the desk before morning lights came on. Oliver had stopped calling it the honey badger after the first week. The name badger was technically uncreative, but the creature responded to it, which suggested either genuine recognition or impressive coincidence. Oliver suspected the former. His terminal chimed with an incoming message: Dr. Arms, the new head of xenobiology, requesting a visit. Oliver sent back approval and watched Badger's ear swivel toward the door. Before the doctor even arrived, Dr. Arms was human, transferred from Earth specifically to replace Dr. Havoc. After the commander's review revealed multiple ethical violations, she knocked politely and waited for Oliver's verbal permission before entering. Badger raised its head, assessed the visitor, then returned to sleep. Dr. Arms had visited 3 times already, though the had apparently decided she posed no threat. "How's our favorite research subject?" Dr. Arms asked, settling into the spare chair Oliver had acquired for visitors. "Thriving," Oliver said honestly. "Waits up, injuries completely healed, behavior stable." Dr. Arms pulled out a data tablet and made notes. "The behavioral changes are remarkable. Complete aggression shut down when unprovoked, but instant defensive response if someone shows hostility. That level of emotional regulation in a solitary predator is unusual. Maybe it was always capable of this," Oliver suggested. "The lab environment just never gave it a chance to demonstrate anything except survival instincts." "That's my theory as well." Dr. Arms glanced at Badger with genuine fondness. "Your companion's escape led to a complete overhaul of our fauna. Containment protocols. We're treating Earth creatures with significantly more respect now. Larger habitats, enrichment activities, limited testing procedures. The other specimens have shown dramatic behavioral improvements." Badger's ear twitched at the mention of other specimens, but the creature didn't wake. "Dr. Havoc fought the changes," Oliver said carefully. Dr. Havoc no longer works here, Dr. Arms replied. Commander Priest terminated his contract, turns out systematically. Torturing research subjects violates several Federation scientific ethics codes. He's facing formal charges. Oliver felt satisfaction at that news, though he kept his expression neutral. Badger shifted slightly on the desk, pressing closer to Oliver's workspace. The creature did that sometimes subtle movements that suggested awareness even during sleep. I wanted to discuss the permanent approval process, Dr. Arms said. 90-day trial period ends in 2 months. Commander Priest will need comprehensive behavioral documentation to make a final decision. What do you need from me? Daily logs, incident reports, any behavioral observations worth noting. I'll handle the medical evaluations and species-appropriate care verification. But honestly, Oliver, I don't think you have anything to worry about. This arrangement has been remarkably successful. Badger chose that moment to wake up fully. The creature stretched, yawned with impressive tooth display, then walked across the desk to Oliver's side. It sat down next to his hand, close enough that Oliver could feel the warmth of its body. Dr. Arms smiled. See, that's not typical honey badger behavior. Solitary species don't usually seek proximity with other creatures, but badger has bonded with you, genuine social attachment. Or I'm a convenient heat source, Oliver said, though he didn't really believe that anymore. Badger made the soft chirping sound that Oliver had learned meant contentment. The creature leaned against his arm just slightly, just enough to maintain contact. Dr. Arms stood up to leave. I'll compile my observations and send them to the commander. Keep doing what you're doing. You've essentially disproven decades of assumptions about Earth predator socialization. That's significant. After she left, Oliver returned to his work. Badger remained at his side for a few minutes before jumping down to explore the office. The creature had a complex patrol route that it followed every day, checking corners and investigating any new objects with methodical precision. Oliver's communicator buzzed. Commander Priest requesting a status update. Oliver sent back a brief report, confirming that everything remained stable. The commander had been checking in regularly, clearly taking the provisional arrangement seriously. Badger returned to the desk carrying something in its mouth. Oliver recognized it as a data cable that had fallen behind the storage cabinet weeks ago. The creature deposited it carefully on Oliver's keyboard, then sat back and waited. Thank you, Oliver said, moving the cable aside. This had become another part of their routine. Badger would find lost objects during its explorations and bring them to Oliver, sometimes useful items like cables or tools, sometimes random things like bottle caps or crumpled papers. Oliver had learned to accept everything with equal appreciation. The creature seemed satisfied with his response and returned to its designated spot on the desk. It circled twice before settling down, the ritual exactly the same every time. Oliver watched Badger curl into sleep position and felt something unexpected. Not just responsibility or scientific curiosity, but genuine affection for this strange, fierce creature that had crashed into his life and decided to stay. His terminal displayed a notification. Another intern had submitted a request For emotional support, animal status. Small herbivore from a low-gravity world. The precedent had been set. Other crew members were starting to understand that companionship came in many forms. Badger snored quietly, a sound like distant rumbling. Oliver turned back to his ecological data and smiled. They had 2 months to prove this arrangement should be permanent, based on everything they had learned about each other, about trust in adaptation and choosing safety over violence. He wasn't worried. The most dangerous creature on the station had found a home on a human's desk, not through force or containment, but through mutual understanding. Oliver had offered safety, Badger had offered trust. Everything else had followed naturally from there. Outside the office, the station continued its normal operations. Research teams worked in laboratories that now treated their subjects with dignity. Security patrols maintained order without expecting every Earth creature to be a threat. Crew members walked past Oliver's office and waved at the human and his unusual companion. Dr. Havoc had seen honey badgers as dangerous specimens requiring control through fear and pain. Oliver had seen an exhausted animal seeking refuge and offered it without conditions. The difference in approach had created entirely different outcomes. Badger shifted in its sleep, one paw stretching out to rest near Oliver's hand, not quite touching but close enough to maintain awareness of his presence. The creature had survived 6 months of systematic trauma and still possessed enough capacity for trust to accept kindness when offered. Oliver made a note in his daily log. Behavioral observation, subject continues to demonstrate advanced emotional intelligence and social adaptability. Recommendation for permanent approval remains unchanged. This arrangement benefits both parties and poses no risk to station operations. He paused, then added one more line that wouldn't go in any official report, but felt important to record. Badger is home. That's what matters most. The creature's ear flicked in its sleep, as if acknowledging the sentiment even in dreams. Oliver saved the log and returned to his work, comfortable in the quiet office he now shared with the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. A creature that had chosen peace over violence, trust over fear, and a cluttered desk over the vast, dangerous freedom of space. Because sometimes the most fearless thing any being could do was allow themselves to be vulnerable enough to accept care. Badger had taught him that 1 month ago, terrified and injured, making a desperate choice to trust the quiet human in the isolated office, now sleeping peacefully in a space that had transformed from refuge to home. Oliver looked at his companion and whispered the same thing he said every night before leaving. "I'll see you tomorrow, Badger." The creature didn't wake, but its breathing shifted slightly. Acknowledgement, agreement, the implicit promise that tomorrow would be the same as today, safe, peaceful together. That was enough. That was everything.